welcome everyone to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are archived. You can pick them up anytime. And we accept your questions and comments to dj@artistfirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Scott, or Z-Man, or however we introduce you. And yes, I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And welcome to the Soul of the Everyman on this this is the Ides of January, which I think that's when Caesar sent out for pizza. And Little Caesars was born. And we are here tonight with an interesting topic. We always dig around for interesting topics, and we thought, well, this one will be fun because you actually came up with this. I'm not sure. You may have told me already how this came to you.
Oh, I was thinking about how the development of trends in thought in a civilization, and before industrialization, the beginning of scientific thought, and before that, before that, we were always incorporating the spiritual side of ourselves in with our thoughts and our emotions. But when we began to go down more of a scientific thought, it goes immediately into proofs and solid, graspable facts, repeatable facts.
Mm.
So it narrowed down your thought process into not incorporating any idea of spiritual in what you're doing, because the spiritual aspect is unprovable.
And I think we got to the topic, and you guys should really go on the website and check out this awesome boss graphic and all the other awesome boss graphics which are there, which we select with great care. But we got to tonight's topic, which is spiritual but not religious, and with a question mark, because I think where your thought led us was that once you do that, it changes the society, it changes the person,
Mm-hmm.
because in essence you bifurcate your natural spirituality. We are all, human beings from the beginning of time have realized that they are more than flesh. When you see these Neolithic burial sites where there's obvious connection to an afterlife, they're putting
Right.
things into their burials which show that these are the things these people used in life, and they're taking them with them across, to the other side, if you will. And without going too much into that, once you kind of put rigor on everything, put rigor on all experience, and listen, I'm a scientist, so I am not arguing against science. Please don't send Scott any nasty letters. But what we're saying is, when you put rigor on things, you put it on everything, and I believe we took our visceral spiritual selves, which really can't be proven. You can't touch it. You can't measure it, quantify it. You can't look and say, well, here's a cup full of the Holy Spirit or whatever. You can't do that. But we said, well, if you can't do that, we have to push it outside. We have to say, well, that's something that we can't put our hands on, so we can't deal with it on a daily basis. And I think we also, conversely, kind of drew in a lot of what would be scientific rigor into our spirituality, and we started to organize things and make things very, very concrete and sort of, tit for tat, and this gets you that, and this rule means this consequence, and back and forth. So I think some of the rigor which people have built around their spirituality, in which they may call various types of disciplines and religions, is maybe an outcome of this bifurcation as well.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of it's the human functioning of the mind to try to relate itself to what's going on around it. And how it relates to it usually is an aspect of thinking and how they think about it.
Mm.
So when you're considering something, the first thing you usually do is, what is it that I do know and what can I count, in order to pour into the consideration pot and jiggle it around and try to come up with a solution.
Mm.
And if you only focus down on what is provable,
Mm.
then it cuts out a huge percentage of things, which, frankly, is fine if you're doing numbers or trying to
designing bridges or something good like that. Yeah.
you have to be able to do something like that. But to apply it to all aspects of your life, and this is where I say the human condition comes in. We are creatures of habit, and we don't realize how deeply habitual we are in our thinking. So when you learn how to just basically say, well, I don't believe it unless I see it, the show me kind of attitude, it narrows things down so completely in your experience of life that you don't realize that you're actually shutting down parts of yourself by doing it. And certainly when you discount certain promptings internal, you begin to shut off aspects of yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where you get this sort of distrust of the guide, the heart's guide, the inspiration, the not listening to that inner voice. Those are all consequences of that. I would believe for sure.
Mm-hmm. So that was originally what I was thinking, is that turn of thought and how it began to affect generation upon generation of what we consider history. This particular brand of history, which is fascinating.
But that led us sort of in the way of towards considering this idea of spiritual but not religious, and that's sort of I guess I'm not as plugged in as I thought I was, but I didn't realize how much of a sort of a meme term that was. I started to look it up, and I said, well, wow, there's a whole bunch of things, and there's two camps here that kind of talk to each other and disparage each other, and like anything, like any human endeavor, people are picking sides and picking teams and rooting for red team, blue team, which is always it's so quaint. We do that with with everything. Every blessed aspect of our lives, we have to choose up sides and root for our side. Because we're so, the problem with us people, just for a moment, I guess, we're so tribal. It's us versus them all the time, no matter what it is, So with this,
that's my point. This is a thinking pattern that is comfortable to most people. Who is like me, and if you are like me, what if it's a physical form, or you're wearing the same type of clothing, or a style, or you listen to the same kind of music or books or whatever, well, we'll band together, or you have the same woundology, they band together as well. It's a human thing, but it's not always brought up to be recognized that, this is a way of thinking that you're doing.
I think it's oftentimes actively hidden, or we hide it from ourselves. We try to believe that the other folks are dogmatic and rigid and they're inflexible, and they don't, they never think about anything. Meanwhile, what are we doing? We're being very dogmatic and rigid about rejecting them and making sure that all the people that we know agree with us. And that's on, I'm not picking a side here. It's on all sides. It's a human, condition, foible. We do exactly what you said. We want to find people who think and look and act and agree with us. And then we also desperately want to find people who don't think, don't act, and don't look like us, so that we can be mean or make sure that we're not associated with them. We want to draw up sides.
Well, you want to prove that you're better in some way, shape, or form. That's the truth of it. I mean, some people say, "Oh, well, I'm drawing away because I just don't agree with that." But what you're actually doing, many times, it's like, "Well, I'm better than that. I don't agree with that. I have a better viewpoint than you. Mine is much broader than yours."
I'm spiritual. I'm not religious.
And when you don't listen, and I go back to that one point. Are you actually hearing what's being communicated to you, or are you telling yourself a story?
Well, yes, and I would say that largely people are telling themselves stories in many ways. But to circle back to your point, I think that this is excellent. It's a really good place to jump off. Is that almost always when people use these terms, whether they identify, let's just take those two. Let's take spiritual and religious. First of all, they're very identical. They're almost interchangeable, and they were interchangeable in thought maybe for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. There wasn't really a big difference between spirituality and religion. But now they've been sort of pushed apart, and people have drawn up sides on them. And in both cases, those who profess one or the other, what they're really trying to do is say exactly what you said. I'm better than you because of X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
The folks who say I'm, I use a blue cup versus a red cup. Well, blue cups are much closer to the actual meaning of life, and blue cups relate us, to the truth of the universe, and red cups are just small and tiny and full of coffee. And those people, they don't know what to do with those cups. And then the other way around is, we're talking, the red cups are, there's structure, and there's a way of relating to community, and there's a beauty and a sacrifice and a dedication and a resolve, and there's acts and works. And so we start to, it's all both ways. From either side, you can say, well, I'm trying to prove myself better, or I'm trying to prove myself more worthy, and the other's less. So it's the old human, I'm better than you.
It's a power struggle again. It's who's on top. I mean, if honesty was the foundation of your experience, you would see that a lot of the struggles that are out there and are ongoing have to do with power and who is more powerful than whom.
Third chakra.
Right. And that is always the crux point. In a civilization, when they have grown in concern from survival through procreation into the power chakra, struggle at the power chakra is whether or not you can take a step upward towards the heart chakra and let go of the power. But when you see these arguments, inevitably, it's about power.
And I think both sides tar each other with, in essence, the same exact brush.
It's the exact same technique. There has been no change. They just change their sight, but they still pull the trigger. Instead of being able to say, okay, what is going on? Put the gun down.
Well, the Soul of Everyman does not condone violence. But in truth, the trigger that they're both pulling on each other, or the concept they're trying to push on each other, is, as you said, I'm better than you. I should be in charge. I should be more powerful. And the smallest of differences are made as large as possible. It's that
right.
old,
right.
You magnify the differences in order to gain an advantage. To go back to our premise for tonight, which is the spiritual but not religious with the question mark. What we say on the boss graphic next to the boss graphic on the website is that we're looking at two sides of the same coin. These two words, spirituality and religion, are really not separable on any level. And the reason to that is, we'll pull back and just say, well, the folks who say I'm spiritual and I'm not religious are equally dogmatic and equally rules-based. It's just they have different rules.
Mm-hmm.
And the funniest thing was we were looking, we looked for little tidbits on the internet, and we found an interesting article, and the people who were writing about this spiritual but not religious had categorized it, and they were breaking it into. It was like a taxonomy of this particular group of people, and it had 5 categories and 3 subcategories, and where they you had aspects of all. So it was genus, species, phylum. It was
Right.
you could be an SPNR COD, or you could be a this. So the lovely thing about it was, if you sit back and say, well, this is just as much a
Religion.
a dogma.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as much a it has different rules and different rigidity, because both things, both religion and spirituality, or rather both concepts, are being separated not because they're different, but because people want them to be different in order to point a finger at one group or another.
Right.
And language always informs. If you look at what these things actually mean, one contains the other by force or by definition. You can't have anything which is truly defined as a religion without the spirit, without some connection between the human being and what is not the human, what is the greater. The greater may be embodied as God. It may be concept of religion. It may be something which a concept rather of a universal kind of beneficent energy. It may be the trees or animism or whatever. But it's always a thing which is external, which is greater than the human being to which we try to relate to. The Native Americans have the sweat lodges and the spirit journeys. It's certainly not the same concept of God, but it's a human being relating to that which is outside of themselves through a process of ritual.
Okay, but
rules.
there's also the internal, because in the Eastern religions it's an internal God.
Yeah, I'm not trying to differentiate.
Okay, different, but the differentiation is the concept of who you think you are, and then that which is not you.
Yes.
Okay, not necessarily outside of yourself. It's just not you.
Right, and then you have the mechanisms to do that.
Right.
And once you have those mechanisms, whatever they are, whether it's a sweat lodge, or a dance, or a meditation, or a service in a church, these are all means by which you put yourself in a state to either communicate or receive or be influenced by or be in relationship with that which is not you, which is outside.
And when I say not you, I mean not ego.
Well, yes, you're not.
Well, it's just that the concept of you, it's again definitions that we're talking. It's a broader being state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not getting caught in that ego concept and realizing that there's more to you. So yes, the way we go about expanding the concept of who we are, there are many commonalities for many humans, and therefore, because of that, the tendency was to gravitate together and say, okay, you're doing it very similar to me. What have you learned? There's sharing at that point.
How they develop, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what works for that particular group doesn't always work for a different group.
But I think the abstraction is that regardless, these two concepts grow up together.
Right.
You have first the sort of the yearning, the understanding that the flesh, that there's more to the being, than what can be seen. What we started out with. There's more to us than that can be touched and proven and measured and quantified. There's a mystery.
And that discipline, I will call it a discipline, of being able to think just in that material form in order to do your abstractions, in order to build, that is being applied to everything, as opposed to understanding that it is a tool that needs to be done under specific conditions. If you're creating something, if you're building something, if you're or trying to render down, I don't know, how do I, it's like math, it's like
abstract a concept. But I'm with you. But what I'm trying to say is we realize that isn't everything. That's just the basic thing that happens, and then you can maybe have commonalities and so on. You realize there's a mystery here. You realize that to relate to the mystery, there needs to be some way of doing that. I do this, you do that. Oh, that the way you do it. I would like to follow the way you're doing it, the way you're relating to the mystery of what is not you, and that's where you get community and ritual and mythos and myth and ceremony and all that around it. But without the initial mystery, there's no need for any of the process, any of the ritual that goes around it.
Right.
So then people are eschewing the process, but they want to. It's not that they don't have a process; they want a different process, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But people being people want to say that my process is superior and much better for all of us than your process, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about and I do. So I mean, this from the in the abstract, this is nothing that hasn't been part of the human experience from the day one, maybe the day one before one. You can find every one of the alternative pathways to the mystery throughout all of human history. You can find everything from the most dogmatic of dogmatic religions to the most huggy of huggy trees to the most meditative of meditative meditations, and it goes all the way back, because the mystery and the difference between the being and that mystery hasn't changed. That's kind of the real central tenet, is that we don't know how to relate to the mystery. And no matter what we do, we can't put hands and measure and quantify and prove and apply all of our lovely discipline and get the mystery. All of it misses. Every dogmatic religion, every huggy of tree, every baggy of bag, whatever it is, they all miss. They get a piece, they get a whiff, there's a breeze, there's a connection. But we know they're missing. And then despite the fact that we're all trying, and we should all say, well, that's great, we're all getting there somehow. No, we have to say, because gosh darn it, we're just those kind of people. God, our way's the best.
That's true. And you sit there and to really understand that this is the foundation of what you wind up doing as human. I mean, catch your thoughts. Look at that, and you always, there's a judgment there. Oh, I can do that better. It's like, can you catch yourself in that human moment of saying, I'm always better than you? Can you really truthfully do that? Because if you just try it for one day and count how many times you've done it.
Yeah.
And that is the foundation of what this religion versus spirituality is about.
Yeah.
Without changing that thought pattern, then it's moot. It's like you will always come back to the us versus them mode.
Yes. And it's the other lovely thing about us, and we're humans too. The other lovely thing about us is you know what? If it's a mistake and it didn't go well, we're going to try it again. Darn it, because this is how my ancestors killed my other ancestors. I'm going to do it too. We are nothing if not creatures of habit, creatures of pattern, creatures of that we are very comfortable falling into the us versus them mode because that's who we are. The other thing you mentioned earlier about being honest, if we were really honest about the judgment, we could also really be honest about the fact that we're really happy when we're able to tell somebody else that they're doing it wrong. It really like gets us off. We're really like, whoo, I'm feeling all kinds of good now because I told them they're doing it wrong. Woo-hoo. Or I'm just sitting there going, they're doing it wrong. That's something that it's sort of it's one of those ugly little truths, It's something which, again, if you're truly on the path to the mystery, you have to truly realize that you're walking or you're trying to walk away from that, not make it a central, not make it a central part of what you're doing.
Yes, not to embrace that, to realize that, because the minute that self-satisfied smirk comes across your face,
that's exactly what it is too.
You have to realize that it's your ego that's talking, and it's certainly not your heart.
Yes.
You are firmly ensconced in the power mode where because I'm right, I get a charge out of that.
Yes, and that charge is coming from here, from the third chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels good. It always feels good because, the other thing we should be, very truthful about is we like to be in charge. We like to be powerful. And I can include all of us in that, feeling in charge and powerful and in control is something we really, really, really want. I mean, there's many different ways of expressing that desire, but the basic desire, and I think this was a few shows back, we said that it's born of a fear of not being in control. And that, when you're talking about the power chakra, it's often driven by fear.
Well, it's the fear of not being safe as opposed to control. Control is an upshot of that. Because you think that if you're in control, then you'll always be safe.
Yes,
Okay?
That's true. Yes, I agree.
It has to go deeper. You have to realize that the fear is whether or not you are going to be able to say that I exist or I do not. That's a very deep fear. Very few people have embraced that one.
Well, it's a scary fear. Very scary. It's the interesting thing about that, I think, is if you go deeper into that fear, and you go below it even further, you're going to find some of the edges of the mystery, because part of the mystery of existence here versus existence outside of oneself is that the existence outside of oneself is another way of getting rid of that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the true connection back to spirit, because I'm so spiritual, the true connection back to spirit is it abrogates the need for the power chakra. Not that it's not there, it is, but heart transcends.
It transforms the power into something far greater. See, the power in the power chakra, if you abide there only, then it's only the power that you happen to have. Power that comes from the heart is greater, much greater, because infused by the Spirit, by your soul. But the power in the power, hara, chakra, is the physical form, the flesh, its body.
And it's where the connection is. And I think that that visceral connection also powers a lot of this different stuff. But I think we also have a visceral connection back to the studio that we have to go back to, and we'll take a little break and we'll come back and we'll talk more about SBNRs.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the 4th largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Get ready.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Let's get back to your hosts. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, V-Man. And yes, this is the second half of The Soul of the Everyman. And tonight we are talking about the topics of spirituality and religion, but not the way you might think. So before you, I can see your hand reaching out to flip the channel. No. What we're really talking about is the very human tendency to, in essence, try to encapsulate the mystery, which is the mystery of what is not us, and almost, in a way, reject it. Wouldn't you say, Mark?
Well, it's scary. The mystery is scary. And so we are always going back to things that we can make ourselves feel better.
Mm.
And once you begin to try to control that, the thought, of course, is not in your head that, once I get to a point where I can control that, then it's no longer a mystery.
Mm.
And you've come out of the fullness of what that is into this little box that you can take with you anywhere you want.
Mm. I mean, that is some of what we're trying to do. I mean, we in broad are trying to do with both with religion and with these things that try to say they're not religions but are, is we're trying to put it all in a box that we know exactly how big it is and how much is inside and how much it weighs and what we can do with it. And what is that? It's a very scientific sort of modern-day Western thought way of trying to encapsulate the mystery. We're trying to shove it into a box where it can never fit. It's too elusive for that, and it's too vast for that. And so go ahead, sorry.
And I was going to say, science has come closer to it than it's ever, with the unseen energy and the unseen matter, the dark energy and the dark matter, as they call it.
Yes.
And the truth is, of course, if the scientists that are honest will say, yeah, we don't know. That's why we call it dark. We can't see it.
Right. We're getting, actually, modern-day astrophysics and astronomy and cosmology is getting very, very close because they're now seriously discussing theories like, well, from the outside, and this is something which is going to blow people's minds, from the outside, the universe really doesn't have a dimension. You can't say how big or how small it is. It might as well be an infinitesimal point. And then people say, what do you mean outside the universe? Well, exactly. But, dark matter, dark energy, the fact that through, verifiable, again, this kind of Western science fact-finding, we've come up against the mystery again. Mm-hmm. We've come up against the fact that we really don't have a clue where this all came from. And the more you study it, the worse it gets, because then you have to say, all these, gazillion billion of stars and everything in the whole blessed universe comes out of a point, which is in essence dimensionless. And you say to yourself, that's pretty cool, but pretty mysterious. And then you say, of all of that, 80, maybe 90% is actually stuff which isn't matter, that we can't touch, see, feel, interact with. And we're at the point now where what we consider like normal everyday things are in essence a infinitesimally small portion of the actual thing, which is the universe. And it doesn't interact very well with us, all the rest of it. So you've now put kind of this, desk, cup, car, shoes kind of reality and said, oh, all that kind of doesn't really exist as far as we can tell from the rest of the universe's point of view. Getting more.
This is what I mean. If you actually looked at it that way, you were shaking in your shoes because suddenly you just about do not exist. You rate real, even smaller than small on the scale of creation because, of course, there are universes upon universes. You're just looking at this universe. It's like, well, let's shrink it down to our galaxy, and maybe we'll shrink it down to our solar system. But it's very small.
Yes. And the other even before, even let's go back 100 years in science, we knew and we still know, and it's a verifiable fact, that all what we call matter is made up of incredibly small points, dense points, which are the nuclei of atoms, and then clouds, and people have been taught that they're kind of like little ball bearings, but they're really just kind of probability charges that race around that infinitesimally small points. And those things, that's what everything you touch is. It's a cloud of dust with other clouds of charges racing around it, and yet it feels pretty solid, but it's really not. And the more we have used science to study what we say is, the less real it gets. The more and more and more, and this is the scary bit, the further into the universe we go, the less real we get. You know, we are clouds of dust in the universe that everything else in it can't interact with. We're almost kind of at the point where we're the ghosts in this giant thing that doesn't care about us. That's the other way to get to the mystery. You can go all through your science and all through your toe-tapping counting and your theories and your math, and you're still going to bump up against the mystery, and it's scary, you know. Some of these scientists get pretty freaked out. They start to freak each other out, you know.
Yes. And the fact that we can actually reach out and touch another human being is a miracle of the first form.
Oh, yeah. Why doesn't one cloud of dust go through another cloud of dust?
We should actually be going through each other.
Yeah.
If you're going theoretically into what you're actually made up on a subatomic level, we should be passing through each other.
It's a, you know, you're a scientist. You've been trained as a scientist. I'm a scientist. I've been trained as a scientist. And the more you get into it, the more you realize that there's really not a lot that makes up what we call solid, everyday, verifiable matter. It's kind of a lot of smoke and mirrors. So, and this isn't like some crackpot theory. This is hard science. We could go right into the real. You know, like we get very, very particular about it, and we lose everybody in the audience. We don't need to do that. The point is that, you know, people put a lot of faith in science, in things that they say are real and concrete and verifiable, measurable. Well, all those things are not so real.
Yes. But what I'd like to point out is that what science is actually doing is with taking measurements and reproducing results over and over again, what they're actually doing is writing down a description of what is actually happening. Okay? As opposed to what the actual experience of it is. It's a two-dimensional snapshot of what's actually in the room. And when you're taking a snapshot, you're always coming from a distinct perspective. And the picture is actually two-dimensional, but our minds look at it and say it's three. You know, just that alone, the ability to do that alone, where your mind takes that two-dimensional image that's flat and says, okay, 3 dimensions. That function that we do is amazing.
Yeah, well, and I think you're talking, this is the other, you know, you can also come at this from the point of view of the brain, of the organic matter, you know, that we are made of, and what we are actually sensing this almost non-existent universe with are extremely poor biological sensors. The retina of the eye is a molecule or two thick. It is getting a badly distorted, somewhat grainy, a chemical representation of some photons hitting it. Am I scaring you yet? And you take that from two of these kind of oddly shaped biological light receptors, and you construct reality, what you can see from it, the beauty of a sunrise, the stars, the night, the people you love, everything you see is coming through molecule paper thin organic light receptors. Myrrh. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And everything you touch is really just electrons pushing on other electrons, clouds of probability pushing on other clouds of probability. What we call solid is no more than that. We are collections of organic molecules that are sending around electrical impulses around. I mean, the further you go into organic science, the less real we seem to be. We really are spirit. It's the only part of us that is closer to the rest of the universe. This organic existence is quite illusory, and the more we look at it, the more illusory it gets. It's sketchy. This is a sketchy thing. This is like baby town nonsense here. It's like, yeah, they'll buy that. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Just don't poke on it too hard. It's really, it's that sound and fury signifying nothing. Our poets are close. Our spiritual, our spiritual tendencies are close. The universe of spirit is the universe. It really is. And the mystery is reality, and this is not. This is the illusion.
Yes, science has proven that we are in the illusion.
Every day, more and more.
That is the certainty that we have right now.
If we pull...
And I want to bring up this one point, okay? When you understand that the electrons that are flowing are in this cloud formation, okay? When we say cloud formation, it has to do with the fact that this electron is at a certain point within this nebulous fluff ball, at any given time. It doesn't mean it's actually in orbit.
No.
It happens to be like here, 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 here.
Yeah. It's just probability.
At certain points. Now, what I'd like to suggest is that is actually multidimensional. And what we are perceiving because of our narrowness of our sight and experience, it appears almost like it's an orbit, but it's not. This is just, we happen to pick up the dimension of that particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
This electron moving. But we are more, it's actually more than that, and so are we.
Yes. And that's, Margaret is coming at this, trying to put into words what is verifiable science. The mathematics behind all that is well established and sound. It's quantum mechanics. And again, the closer we get, consider quantum mechanics, the closer we get to understanding what we call the universe is actually made of, the more diaphanous, the more almost non-existent it becomes. These quantum probability states collapsing and becoming real are what we are calling reality, what we are all kind of agreeing is reality. The Native American, we all dream the common dream. Well, they really had it kind of right, and I think at some level that the revelation of mystery can be arrived at in many ways. You can arrive at it, your toes tapping, hitting everything, measuring, bam, you run into the mystery, and you go, wow, really? All that measuring comes down to this is just like dust made out of probability stuff? Ooh. And then we get there with mysticism, we get there with meditation. Every direction we go, and we as human beings go in many directions, we always bump up against the mystery.
And that is the point. That is the point of why there is a distinction between religion and spirituality. It has to do with where you happen to reside with your fear.
Good point.
Where do you actually reside with your fear? Are you brave enough to look at it without having a reaction and realize that is at the core of why you do what you do? And if you are not feeling secure, and peaceful in your heart. That should be the wake-up call to say, okay, my peace is everything. I must find this. What steps will allow me to begin to open up and change who I am? Because what was that definition? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Definition of insanity.
The definition of insanity.
Yeah. And true. And I think also your other point, which is that, once you can get to the mystery and get past the power and into the heart and into the connection to spirit and into the reality through many different ways. There isn't a specific formula. We would love there to be. We really want there to be.
Actually, there is a way, and it's only through your heart.
Well, at the end, all things converge there at the heart. What I'm saying is the methodologies, and they're as different as every human on the planet.
We as human beings want to believe that we can do things in order to become larger than who we are, come to our potential. We have to do things in order to reach that.
Mm-hmm.
But in that doing, it only considers the body. It does not integrate the spirit and the soul, because it wants to be able to do tangible things as opposed to being able to expand your awareness to the point where you're integrating all of your spirit and the different aspects of your soul and who you are.
Yeah. And
all that is possible if you want to take the step outside.
Yeah, right, and I think there isn't one way to get there. There are many paths to get to that same place. The unitary place you get to is you get to and you connect back to, because we are all from the mystery. What you're really trying to do is to understand that the separation is the problem, or the illusion of separation is the problem. Not the power, not the control, not the fear, none of that stuff. That's all part of the illusion of the separation, and not how you get there, or whether my way is better than your way. It comes down to that you realize whichever way you're getting there, as long as you're approaching the truth, the reality, the real reality, the underlying truth of reality, you're getting closer. Our way of doing that is through what we are. We are really spirits. We are really part of the mystery. Getting there and getting past all the distractions is our challenge. And so, to go back to our question, because we're back to this again. We very purposely found, and it took quite a while because there were a lot of things about. There were a whole bunch of things. There were all camps and people up in arms and throwing rocks and bottles. But at the end of the day, I finally found one graphic that said "spiritual but not religious" with the question mark, and I found that one to be the most compelling because, although God knows why they threw a bunch of mountains in the back, the point is that is it. Spiritual but not religious, and we could turn it around, religious but not spiritual. Neither one of them makes sense as individual statements. But in truth, you don't need to be. There needs not be any distinction. In truth, there needs not be any distinction. The guide of structure may be important for some. The guide of spirit may be important for others. The guide of both. The path may be completely different from both. It may go a whole different route. We've got to do what you just said.
Well, I go back to if you are capable of making the leap from the power chakra to the heart chakra, what happens is something that is truly amazing, because compassion becomes the main heartbeat of who you are. And forgiveness. And the overused, misunderstood word, love.
It is both those things. And I think what we're talking about is love, which is, the unconditional, or as close as we can come in this illusion. The key here, again, with anything, if you're professing to be spiritual, in any form, the progression from power to the heart is the first step. As long as you're sitting in the power, you can say all the things. I'm spiritual. I'm this. I'm that. I'm the other thing. But it means nothing if you're circling around your navel, which is where the hara is. If you're circling around the navel and using it to distinguish yourself from everybody else that's circling around the navel, you're no more than that cloud of electrons. You're not getting anywhere. The cloud of electrons in the nucleus is a good analogy for the separation. You've got to get away from the cloud and away from the center. You've got to get into the probability. You've got to get into the mystery. You've got to get away from the distinctions.
Well, you open your mind up to what is uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because the mind loves habitual thinking.
And rigidity,
which is rigidity.
Exactly.
And just being able to recognize that, that's the first step. That how rigid are you actually in your thoughts?
Your exercise from whatever it was last half hour was wonderful. How often do you spend each day? How many times do you judge each day? Oh.
Well, it's a difficult one, but it's a real one to begin to realize, especially if you think, oh no, I'm very accepting of anything and everything. But when you look at your thought pattern and say, oh, I don't like that. Oh, well, I do that better. Oh, well, no, that's wrong. Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Is that flexibility?
Right. Well, they're too fat, they're too thin, they're too tall, they're too short. All those are the wonderful ways that we perpetuate the illusion. You give the illusion, the more you do that, the more you give the illusion power, because you're looking for distinguishing. You're looking to differentiate that which is illusory to start with.
And how often can you say that you find the commonality in the other?
Mm-hmm.
If you concentrate on what both of you have in common, what does it mean to be human? Then, by definition, that transforms it.
Yeah, and I think that's the nub of it. So I think our common experience has brought us to the end of the show.
I see.
So, would you take us home?
Oh, all right then. Well, I'm Margaret Lyons, and thank you for being here with us.
All right, and I'm Michael, and this has been The Soul of the Everyman.